Very sensitive microphone here. So we got a middle console repair here. Waiting for anybody else to hop on for a little bit. We'll give them some time. Work on other parts of the car for a little bit. Probably spin this up here. Give this a couple more minutes and we're going to work on the middle console of this car where it's cracking. We're going to create a grain and repair that area with a heat cure compound, and after that paint it up and seal it up with a top coat. So we'll do step by step, make sure everybody understands what's going on. Put an air dry filler onto this. In the meantime, let that go while we're working on the middle console, and I'll get back to that. First compound we'll use on a steering wheel. Can't really readjust this camera too well, but first compound we're going to use is a XR12. It's a thick fill. Filling all these cracks and divots in the steering wheel. We'll level it off, sand it down. It's almost like wall compound at the end of the day, where you put a couple coats on, if you sand it the second coat, you don't want to go too fast on filling it too much. You just glop it on, it's never going to dry, it's going to take forever. I'll turn the car on in a second just to spin this wheel a little bit so you can get some vision on the camera there. See what I'm getting all over, what I'm basically scraping off, getting as level as I can. You use the spatula, you can even go over with your finger out there. Feather out those areas a little bit. All right, so we'll get going on the middle console, which is what this live is all for. Clean up our tools a little bit. So what we're going to use is the Grain Pro cartridge kit. What that does is create grains from scratch. Since we won't have that grain already, we're just going to go and make our own. Won't have any worry about creating or not creating it. All right. Don't mind the background noise either. Got people in the background talking. Just ignore them. All right, so let's rearrange the camera. Pretty good. Close this other door really quick so you can avoid a lot of the noise. So you always want to start off by prepping your surface. You're going to prep your surface with either the Viper Prep, Viper Clean. You can go Leather Prep. Anything to get as much, basically whatever's stuck on the surface here off as possible. So what we're fixing is this little area here. not too bad. It's cracking out. Eventually they'll just keep cracking and feathering out further and further. Just a spider effect eventually. So what we are making is essentially that same texture that's on here, right here. We're just gonna make that right here. We're gonna put our chill bar on there to make it nice and flat, and basically gonna create one of these. But I don't have that texture yet, so we're just gonna create one right now. And when you do this, you want to just basically put it in one spot. You don't want to go around in circles. You're gonna get a bunch of air pockets. So what you do is just keep squeezing about 3 to 4 good squirts of that. And then you're gonna get that right there and go right over with your chill bar or anything with a hard surface, flat surface, I should say. And that will start to cure. You've got about like 5 to 10 minutes roughly with that to create the grain. So while that's going, we can start prepping for our next step, which is getting the repair compound out. We're going to use Ultraflex Black, which is also FX9. If you're going to be buying that off the site there, FX9 is a low heat cure. Takes in a great grain. But our first, if your cracking is bigger than that and you have bigger cracking, you might want to go over with Duraflex first. That's a high heat. That basically will prevent the area from re-softening up if you're going to put a few more coats on than I'm going to have to with this one. This is pretty easy. I could probably even just level it off with the heat gun first, but we're just going to lightly fill in the areas with the FX9. Nothing crazy. You don't want to put a lot on, so we're going to put on that and scrape off. Get it only in the areas that you want to compound and grain. If you have bigger areas filled, then you're going to have to go and keep going further and further for your repair. You want to keep your repair small. So being the first coat, I'm going to take my rag that I use to clean and prep the surface. Just going to wipe a lot of that off out of that. All I'm going to keep in there is anything inside there. You don't have to do this step. It's an extra step if you really don't want to. It's fine. I like to keep my area small, nice and clean. So this is actually curing pretty quick. To make sure that it did get completely cured, you can take a heat gun, go around the edges, make sure it's completely cured in there. Gonna give it a few more minutes. Any questions anybody has, you can shoot them in the chat. We can answer those on live, or just if you're watching the replay later on, we'll make sure we go back and answer your questions for sure. Don't hesitate if anybody does have any questions. All right, so that's it. Had a few more seconds there. We're gonna take our chill bar off, and now we made a grain. Bring that up to the camera here. It's hard to see, but this is going to be our grain that we're going to use. And that's going to be to regrain that area. So normally, if you just go and you push down with the one graining pad, you might see some imprints from where your fingers are hitting that you want to prevent. So how to prevent that is we're going to use our grain pad, but we might double that up with one, sometimes two, depending on how thin you made the grain pad. This is a little thicker on one side, a little thinner on the other side, but not too bad. We're just going to go ahead and double it up regardless. And some grains also have where they run down one certain way. You don't want to apply the grain pad sideways where you'll have lines going the opposite way. You kind of want to keep with everything going similar, blends in everything really nice. So we have our heat gun about at 650 right now. We're going to drop the fan down to a low fan, and we're going to heat this up. You want your heating gun right up on that surface. You don't want it up here, you want it down here. Don't be afraid of the heat. So as this is heating up, you're going to notice it's going to dull out the compound, and then it'll shine it back up, but you also get to a smoking point. You should start seeing some smoke point pulling up off the surface. At that point, you know you're getting close. Just keep your heat gun moving. You don't want to sit in one spot. You're going to just burn the surface and ruin the surface itself, and you're going to have more to repair. So keep the heat gun moving, nice and slow. You also want it right up on that surface. If you notice your surface can take more heat, you can bump the heat gun up. This looks like 650, probably 700 it could probably take, maybe 750. If you want to go higher, you can. Just be careful of how much heat you are putting up to it. You don't want to ruin the material or it'll bubble up on you and you just have more and more repairs. So we will take our graining pad and get it ready. So right when you take the heat off, you want to go ahead and grain. So put the grain pad right down onto that. Hold it there for a few seconds. You want to say 25-30 seconds roughly. Take it off. Same thing, just basically from here, we'll work our way down the repair. We're going to bump our heat gun up a little bit. We'll go to 700. Speeds up the process a little bit. And you're probably going to need about 2, maybe 3 coats of compound, depending on how much cracking starts to come out from putting more heat onto it. Some will actually start to crack out a little bit more where you didn't notice there was cracks. They'll just keep going a little bit. Not to worry. Just hit it with your next coat of compound. You'll be good to go. So the reason we're using black is obviously it's a black material. You don't have to worry about putting too many coats of color on out there. This will make it easier to color. We'll just use a black blend polycryl with SafeLink included in that. And the SafeLink is the binding agent, makes it chemical resistant, makes it a lot easier for you to basically give a warranty on your project and your work. The product won't come up. You can wipe it down with alcohol, acetone, lacquer thinner. We have videos on that on our main page where we're showing the differences of our products here. And you can basically try wiping it up. A lot of people go with Armor All, try cleaning up and prepping their surfaces, but you don't want to do that with a lot of other products. With ours, not to worry, you can go ahead and do that. So again, this is our first coat. We're going to go over with another coat afterwards. And we're using the FX9 because it's the black surface. So FX9, it comes in black. If you wanted just a clear or opaque one, that's the Ultra Flex there. If you wanted this in high heat, that would be Duraflex or Black Max. Black Max is the black version of the Duraflex. So FX9 is the black version of the FX9. So we'll take this and we'll do another coat. Just get our grain into this. Now you could do your first set where you heat this up and just put the chill bar down on it. The reason of doing that is just to keep everything nice and flat surface. If you had Duraflex as your first coat and then you're going over with this, that'd be a good reason to do that. Just get a nice flat surface with the Duraflex. You wouldn't have to worry about anything reheating and losing the grain from the first time, going down to a lower heat compound out there. So keep everything nice, thin coats. You don't want to glob the compounds on, no matter what compound you're using. You just want to keep it thin. If you need to add another coat, go ahead. Don't go and try rushing your jobs, and then eventually you'll notice your jobs aren't curing correctly. The product peels afterwards because you're not prepping the surface right, or you're just trying to glob on as much as you can to be done with the job. Just not the right way to do everything. So heat this up again. Be round 2. Keep your heat gun moving. You can see it's shiny, dull. This is uncured. So this is all shiny here. Put your grain pad down. Yeah, most likely. And he thought I was burning things up. And that's all right. So what I like about the Ultraflex and the FX9, they grain very easily. A lot of people have issues with graining the compounds. Sometimes it's more or less because they don't have enough heat onto it, didn't cure enough. So you just want to make sure you get it to that smoking point. It's nice and shiny, and throw your graining pad directly right onto it out there. Don't wait too long. There's no need for texture sprays or anything after that, because if you can grain it good and match the grain, blend it all out really easily. It does take a little bit of time, but so again, you don't want to rush things because then it just does not look good. So with this repair, it looks like 2 coats should be sufficient enough. I don't see anything pulling back up or causing any other issues. So we'll see how 2 coats looks. We'll coat it with the Polycryl black blend that we made and see how things look out there. If needed, we can always put a thin coat over the top of that and regreen the any areas that might need it or might not need it. More or less, you probably won't need it. So long as you follow these steps that we've done so far, you should be doing well as on your own as well. All right, so you can see here, push down a little bit too hard. Not an issue, just take a little heat to it. Softens it back up. You can throw your grain right back down onto that. Same thing up here. We lost a little bit of the grain. This is the part that you want to just double check your work, make sure nothing looks a little weird, because if it looks weird now, it's probably going to look weird later. Just fix it now while you can. I'm just going to push our trail bar down, see where we're at. And being repaired, still got flexibility, nice durable. Can't pull any of that compound up. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to be able to pull any of that up. So we did that step right. Now the next step is to color it up. All right, so we have our black blend here. So we took the cracking out of here with the FX9, grained it with our grain that we made, and now we're just going to take over the top of this with some black blend. Normally this is just, since it's a small panel, just color the entire panel that you have here. It'll blend everything out. We're going to just paint the other side as well, just to make sure any customers that come in to buy this car, they don't see anything regardless, but shouldn't be any issues even if we just left it. You can rub on the first coat, which is very well recommended. It will bite into the material a lot better. The next coat, if you really want to, I'm not going to, but you can spray it on. It makes the finish a little bit nicer. I'm going to just wipe on our next couple coats. Going to pump our heat gun back up to about 900 to 1000 just to quickly dry these coats. After you dry that, do another coat. Try that again. And I'll do one more coat on that. After the color, you want to go over with a top coat of Duracryl. Again, don't forget your safe link in the top coat or the base coat. That's the binding agent to make it chemical resistant. Now we'll grab our top coat, shake it up, make sure everything's blended well together still. I like to use lintless rags for these. You can use sponges, whichever you prefer. Just make sure that your rag or your sponges got some decent amount of product on it. That way, you're not dragging it across and it gets dry. Otherwise, it'll smudge everything that you just did. Dry that up. That's our top coat there. That Duracryl with the safe link in it. And from that point, I'm going to just coat the other side as well so it blends through. But you could call that done and on to your next job. For something like that, you're looking at about 125 to 145 on the low end, depending where you're located. If your dealership's a little higher end, you can get more. For us, we'll probably be right around that same price. We like to stay on the cheaper end just to be very competitive, and as long as the dealership gives you a lot of work, you can stay friendly with them. And anybody have questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments below. But for now, this is what we're going to be ending off with as your final repair. Oh, let's grab that. Catch us on the next live, and have a good day.